A tool calling agent demos beautifully and then falls apart in production. It picks the wrong tool, invents arguments, or loops forever on an error. The uncomfortable truth is that reliability comes far more from the engineering around the model than from the model itself. And that's exactly what a good agent's interview probes. So let's start with what actually separates a dependable agent from a flaky one. Two teams ship the same idea: an agent that calls tools. One is dependable, one is constantly flaky. In your experience, what actually separates them? Take about 10 seconds to think.
Reliability comes far less from the model's raw intelligence than from the harness around it. A dependable agent has a small set of sharp, well-described tools, clearly typed arguments, validation on the way in and out, and a sane error path. A flaky one has a big pile of overlapping tools with vague descriptions, free-form string arguments, no validation, and no recovery. So the model guesses, picks the wrong tool, and nothing catches it. The model is a fuzzy decision maker. It will occasionally choose badly, no matter how smart it is. What makes the system reliable is everything around that decision: how clearly the options are presented, how tightly the inputs are constrained, and what happens when a call goes wrong.
You put weight on the tools themselves. How does tool and schema design affect reliability? What makes a good tool definition? Take a moment before you answer.
Think of the schema as the prompt for tool use. It's most of what the model has to go on. A good tool definition has a descriptive name, a clear statement of when to use it and when not, and typed, constrained parameters, each with its own description. Required versus optional, made explicit. Enums instead of free strings wherever you can. Formats specified. And keep the surface small. A few sharp tools beat a sprawling toolbox. The common failure is two tools whose descriptions overlap, so the model can't tell which to pick, or a free-form string argument that invites it to make something up. Tighten the descriptions and constrain the types, and a lot of wrong tool and bad argument errors simply can't happen.
There's a decision before the call. How does the agent decide whether to call a tool at all versus just answering? And why is that hard to get right? Take 10 seconds here.
The agent decides from the query plus the tool descriptions whether a tool is even needed. And that's genuinely hard because it can fail both ways. It can overcall, reach for a tool when it could have just answered, adding latency and failure surface. Or it can undercall, answer from memory when it should have looked something up, which is how you get confident hallucinations. The levers are mostly in the descriptions. Say clearly when each tool applies, plus an instruction to prefer tools for facts and actions rather than guessing, and making answer directly an explicit, legitimate choice. And don't expose tools the task doesn't need. Every extra tool is another chance to call the wrong one.
Now the symptom you'll actually see. The agent keeps calling the wrong tool or hallucinating arguments. How do you make the calls dependable? Take a moment to diagnose it.
First, I'd treat it as a schema and affordance problem, not a model problem. The backbone is validation. Check every argument against the schema before you execute, and refuse to run a malformed call. When validation fails, don't just error out, feed a clear, specific message back to the model so it can correct and retry. That feedback loop fixes most hallucinated arguments. Then reduce what can go wrong. Constrain arguments with types, enums, and formats, so there's less to invent. Disambiguate overlapping tools by renaming, sharpening descriptions, or merging them. Make required fields explicit. For wrong tool errors specifically, shrink the toolset to what the task needs. And for anything high stakes, put a confirmation step in front of execution.
Even with all that, calls still fail at runtime. A tool returns an error or a bad result mid-task. How should the agent handle that without spiraling? Take 10 seconds to weigh it.
Treat a tool error as signal, not the end of the road. Catch it and pass a structured, informative error back into the agent's context so it can adapt. Retry with fixed arguments, try an alternative, or ask the user. But bound it. Cap the number of retries, and detect when it's failing the same way repeatedly and stop or escalate instead of looping. Distinguish transient failures which are worth a retry from permanent ones, which aren't. And keep the context clean so a pile of error messages doesn't itself confuse the model into more bad calls. The goal is graceful degradation with a clear stopping condition, not an agent that persists blindly until it burns the whole budget.
So, pulling it together, a reliable tool calling agent is mostly good engineering around a fuzzy model. A few sharp tools with clear typed schemas, explicit guidance on when to call them, validated arguments with errors fed back so the model can correct, and bounded retries with a real stopping condition. Treat the schema as the prompt and tool errors as signal, and most of the flakiness disappears. The model decides, the harness keeps it honest. If this kind of prep helps, like this episode, share it with someone who's interviewing, and subscribe to Interview on Your Way. More and better questions are on the way.